first came across this script or heard about this story, what appealed to you?
I fell in love with the script immediately. I read it and I wanted to do it more than anything ever. And I wanted it so badly that after I'd met with them, to decide whether or not I was going to be, considered, someone called me and just said, she was having a bit of a breakdown. Could you just drive me to Ventura? I didn't even know where Ventura was. So they actually, apparently, they called me endlessly to tell me I'd got the part, but I never answered the phone. I wasn't there. That's how much I wanted it. It's just such a beautiful script.
It really is. It is such a beautiful story, and the way in which it's all put together. Also set on Mackinac Island. Well, that's where they filmed.
Mackinac, they call it.
Mackinac, sorry. Australian, trying to pronounce American names. Even though the story isn't set there, that's where you filmed. And I've heard that place is kind of like going back in time.
It very much is. It was originally written, where was it? In San Diego, yes.
Yeah,
At the El Coronado, that's where it was written. But we couldn't shoot it there because they needed to have a place that there were no cars. And there are a lot of cars there. So, and the Grand Hotel Mackinac Island is also famous for having the longest porch, for what that's worth. But when you go there, even today, there are no cars on the island. You arrive at a tiny little airport, or you take a ferry or something, and you get immediately into the mood because they put you in a horse and carriage which goes really slowly and is quite smelly, but very elegant. And then you arrive at this amazing place, the Grand Hotel, and it was so amazing when we were filming because the only cars that you see in the shoot, they came off a ferry and were transported by horses to the spot where they were actually parked. I mean, and the other fun part was that because we didn't have drivers or anything, Chris and I, the whole cast and crew, we were all issued bicycles. His, of course, was number 1. Mine was randomly number 7. I don't know what that meant.
Outrageous. But I heard that Christopher Reeve also had a secret plane. Is that right?
Yes, he did. So he did. He had his airplane hiding on the airstrip, and we did actually break every rule known to man on this show. So we would get on our bicycles in the dark at 4 or 5 in the morning, and we'd go and hide the bicycles, get on the plane, and then Chris would try and teach me how to fly it with him. And then we would go undercover to Toronto or somewhere, and that was fine until somebody actually recognized me, and then he took his hat off, like, I'm here too.
He took his glasses off, and suddenly there was Superman. So I imagine he must have been a very easy person to create chemistry with. He seems like he was a really lovely man.
Well, here comes the story that I'm officially telling you now, because Chris and I, when we made the film, we literally fell madly in love. And so when you see this film, you will see the real thing. And but we didn't let anyone know. So a few of the people who worked on the show kind of sussed it out, but we were as subtle as we could be about it. And then, I don't want to be a spoiler for anybody. Is there anyone here who hasn't seen it yet?
Oh, there's quite a few.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That is pretty amazing, because most people see it about 1,000 times. This is not a movie you see once.
There's a lot of people see it 1,000 times.
So anyway, we were madly in love, and life was wonderful. We were both single. It was a fantastic, amazing experience. We loved this movie. We loved everything about it. The crew, everyone were great friends. It was wonderful. And then one day I came into work on one of the biggest scenes in the movie, which I won't give away for the people that don't know. Very intense movie in which a moment in which I had to ask him a lot of questions about his life, and basically point out he's wearing the wrong clothes, things like that. Anyway, just before that, Chris had an earlier call, and I came in about half an hour later, and they said, Chris needs to talk to you about something. I thought, that's really odd. We've had a long time to talk about things, so what could it be? And it was that he was about to have a baby, and that his ex-girlfriend hadn't told him, and she just announced it to the world. So I then had to put my big girl pants on, and when I watched that scene, I can literally see the tears coming halfway up my eyeballs, and I just kept saying, you can't cry, you can't cry, you can't cry, you're happy. Elise is really, really happy right now. So anyway, the good part of the story is that Chris went on to have these 2 beautiful children, and We met one another on many occasions. We remained really, really close friends, literally till the day he died. And I have to believe that I will one day see him somewhere in time.
I did hear, though, that he wasn't the best ballroom dancer.
Oh my God. He could fly a plane, clearly ride a horse and sail a boat. We also went sailing. I don't think we ever went riding, but you know, he was very much an action kind of guy. But no, his dance skills were interesting because he, like many men, believed that when one foot is down, the next foot to put down is not necessarily the one that's like waiting there. I think they think there are 3 feet involved. And it's like, what happens next? Anyway, I used to be a dancer, so I kind of, we had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, it's a fun scene to watch you guys dancing together. But of course, there's another Christopher who is in the film, a man who is also sadly no longer with us, Christopher Plummer.
Yes, he was, what a remarkable actor. I mean, extraordinary actor. And he was so perfect for the role. And I've worked with him twice. I think I did a thing called Crossings with him as well. He was amazing. The casting on the show was literally perfection. And Izzy Manikovsky, who lit it, was a genius. And Giano, when he took us together before we started filming it, he showed us these art books and he showed us this beautiful impressionism. And he said, this is the world that he goes back in time to. And that's what it looks like. You know, you go from 1979 or whatever it was, and now suddenly you go into this world that you've only seen in Impressionist paintings. It was like surreal. It was just amazing. And then, should I keep going? I know we don't have much time. So the costumes, oh my gosh. So there's this guy called Jean-Pierre Dorliac, and I think this is his first gig, or almost, and he was given a budget, which he chose to ignore completely. And you'd think he would have been fired. He was fired, actually, because he spent triple, I think, something like that. But they were the most amazing costumes ever. And I think he then went on to be nominated for the costumes. And then I worked with him in Battlestar Galactica. So, yeah. Anyway, that was that story.
Yeah, no, I also want to point out for our TCM fans that you'll see Teresa Wright as the older version of Jane's character. And also you should look out for George Wendt and William H. Macy. In the beginning scene, I think William H. Macy is playing a critic and George Wendt is playing a student. So you have to kind of look out for them. But it's an amazing time capsule in and of itself, this movie. And it also became so beloved once it started playing, especially on cable.
Well, what happened is we finished the movie and we weren't allowed to publicize it. The Screen Actors Guild had a strike, and Chris and I were not allowed to tell anyone about the movie, and it's about to come out. Plus, Universal has spent, was it $2 million or something very minimal on this movie, and they had a thing called the Blues Brothers. They were very worried about getting their investment back on, so they ignored us completely. So literally, they hid this movie, literally hid it. And I remember we got the worst reviews ever, and I remember Chris turning to me and saying, you know, because he used to say to me, having done Superman, he says, star for a week, star for a week, star for a week. You know, he just was convinced he'd never work again. And when the reviews came out, he was like devastated. So then, we didn't know. We were very upset by it, obviously. But then I found out that the public found it. And a friend of mine lived in Hong Kong, and he said, do you realize that in Hong Kong, this movie is the longest running movie in the history of film in this part of the world. For 1 year, they couldn't take it off. People came back, and then they took it off for 6 months, and then they had to put it back on again. So it's one of those movies where the audience found it, and I'm still incredibly proud of it. The beautiful score, I think, makes a big difference too.
Which you helped on.
I did. So John Barry was my best friend when I was growing up in the naughty 70s in London, and my agent had said, you are never going to date that man. And I think he'd represented Jane Birkin before or something. But anyway, he was my friend, and then went on to marry the lovely Laurie Barry, who's still a very close friend of mine. And I knew that we needed a score by him, but I knew they couldn't even afford the phone call. So then I just thought, you know what, I'll just ask him. And he saw it, and he just fell madly in love with it. He said, I know exactly what I want to do with this. And so he offered to do it with no upfront money. So it was a thing called back end, I'm sure you understand. So he got all the residuals, like a lot. A lot. And Laurie has thanked me and continues to thank me every day for persuading John to do it for nothing, because it's quite wonderful. I think everybody either gets married or has a baby to Summer in Time. I can attest that I have on many occasions.
Yes, and now you have people that go and visit the island every year when they can. And just to finish up, Christopher Reeve said that this movie had a prime place in the fireplace of his heart. So when you think about what this movie means to you personally, what comes up for you?
I mean, so much. I mean, I still cry when I watch it, and it is just so meaningful to me, because this was probably the greatest time I ever had making a movie, and the greatest relationship I ever had with a co-star. And I think about him all the time, and then the other thing is, the fans, unbelievable. I mean, if you go to Mackinac Island once a year, they have the Summer in Time weekend, which I highly recommend. I've been to it several times. My grandchildren are in love with it. My kids have been there. I have a daughter that looks exactly like me, so when she gets to dress up like me, they mob her. and my grandson, one of my sons, Christopher Keach, is actually Chris Reeve's godson, and he wears the famous, what do you call it, a vest, you call it a vest, which I won't give away what happens to the vest, but I have that vest. He gave it to me, and so we bring it up from time to time. But I think what really thrills me the most is people say, oh, it's a chick flick. Well, guess whose favorite movie it was? General Colin Powell. And he was no chick. So I think if a 4-star general can watch it 30, 40, 50 times, and every time he saw me, he just had tears in his eyes and said it was his favorite movie ever. I meet so many people who say that from every culture all over the world, and I'm so proud of this movie. And I want to thank the fans, because if the fans hadn't done what they did, we wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, be lost to time.
Yes, so never listen to the critics, that's all I can say.
Yes, we agree with that.